go and do that. Got distracted.
But you know what, I feel like everyone has had their kids go to the exam except for now. I know, it is so fun.
Yeah, supposed to turn on.
And at some point, like recently, I was like, it would be really nice to just switch back to them. But I can't do it. No, plus, I mean, you have to start with all new families. You all think of me as my niece. Yeah, I know.
No, I'm okay.
Oh, you're still there. Where you go? The last time I signed was
Hello, Jerry and Ann. I doubt any of the upset people will be here. Who they are, they're either because of the contracts of COVID. Yeah. Reminder to do
Rabbi, is there a sabbatical this summer or next?
June 23. The reason I was talking about now is because the former person already started to
Don't worry, I've already been thinking about a plan of things to help with this for later on. I'm going to make a Google sheet and all the Shabbats that have extra stuff in there and list it. I know, I was thinking we could have a shared Google Doc. I can't remember if it was mentioned in this
All right, good morning, friends. Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started on page 73. Please rise. Blessings for every day. Baruch atah l'machala, asher natan l'sechi bina l'vchein yom ben yom ben laila. Baruch atah l'machala, shesani b'tzalmao. Baruch atah l'machala, shesani Yisrael. Baruch atah l'machala, shesani ben chorim. Baruch atah l'machala, pakech ivrim. Baruch atah l'machala, abish rumim. Baruch atah l'machala, atir surim. Baruch atah l'machala, zakef kefufim. Baruch atah l'machala, ukarat ha'mayim. Baruch atah l'machala, shasali kol tzarki. Baruch atah l'machala, amchim tzari gaver. Baruch atah l'machala, azer shir b'gvura. Baruch atah l'machala, azer shir b'tifara. Baruch atah l'machala, anar ten le'ayef koach. May be seated. We turn to page 134. Hallelujah, 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 El Bekodsho, hallelujah, Berki Auzo, hallelujah, Biglurotav, hallelujah, Kerogulo. Hallelujah, 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 beteka shofar, hallelujah, benevel bechinor, hallelujah, betov umachol, hallelujah, beminim beugav. 143. נשמת כל חי תברך את שמך. מי ידמה לך ומי ישווה לך ומי יערוך לך אל הגדול גבור לעולם כל השמיים וארץ נהללך ונשבחך ופארך נברך את שם קודשך כמו אל דוד ברכי נפשי עד אדוני וכל קרבי את שם קודשו האל בתעצם עוזך הגדול בפרט שמך הגיבור לנצח ולרותיך המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא. On page 149. שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו וחטאו ורנו צדיקים באדוני ישרים נבט תהילה בפי ישרים תתהלל ובדברי צדיקים תתברך ובשם חסידים תתרומם ובקרב קדושים תתקדש ובמעגלו רבבות עמך בית ישראל. ריתבר שמך מלכנו בכל דור ודור שכן חובת כל יצרנו לבניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו להודות להלל לשבח לבאר לרמם להדר לברך להלל כל קלס על כל דברי ישירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך ישתבח שמך לאלוהינו. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הגדול בתשבחות אל ההודאות אדון הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך העולמים. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה יאמר יברח חירותי וימלך מלכותי וחייכון וביומכון ולכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב יאמרו יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם מעלמיה יברח וישתבח ויברח רם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעולם ינקום ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה Kamiran be'alma v'meru. Amen. Please rise for the Baruch Hu, page 152. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai Baruch le'olam va'ed. We may be seated. Baruch Adonai l'mechalam yotzor v'rechoshech v'aseh shalom u'aret hakol. Hakol yoducha v'hakol yeshabchucha. V'kol yom yom kiddush Adonai. אין כערכך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומי דומה לך. אין כערכך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומי דומה לך. אין כערכך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו חיי העולם הבא. אפס בלתך גולים לימוד המשיח. אין דומה לך מושיע לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גדולו בטובו, מלא עולם דעת, ותבונה סובבים אותו. המתגאה על חיות הקודש, ונהדר בכבוד, על המרכבה זכות ומישור, לפני חיסות חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו. שברא אלוהינו יצרה בדעת, בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה, נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. מלאים טיב ומפיקים נוגה, נעזיבם בכל העולם, צמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים בהם הרצון קונם. פאר בכבוד נותנים לשמור, כל מרינה לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש שבח נותנים לו, כל צבא מערום, תפארת וגדולה, שרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש, ולשון שבת מכל המעשים. ברוך משינו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ואומר, אור שעשית יפרוק הסלע. 159. תברך צורנו, מלכנו וגואלנו, ברי קדושים, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה וטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, מברכים ומשבחים, כפרים ומריצים ומקישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך, הגדול הגיבור והנורא, קדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליהם מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, ולהקדיש רצונם בנחת רוח, בסופה ורע ונעימה, קדושה כולם כאחד, עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות ובארץ כבודו. ויופנים בקדוש פרש גדול מן השיאים הצורפים, למעתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני בין, לא ברוך נבוא ייתנו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, את אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר באורו, וצפרי אהבה רבה נתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה היתרה חמלת עלינו, אבינו מלכנו, בעבור אבותינו, שבטו בך, אבינו מלכנו, ותלמדם חוקי חיים, כן תכוננו תלמדנו, אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו. מתן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והארננו בתורתך ודבק דמנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה ויראה את שמך. נבוש ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. Ve'avienu l'shalom ve'arba kanfot haaretz ve'tolichenu komemiyu le'artzenu ki el poel yeshuot ahatam Mikol melashon ve'kerabtanu L'shimcha hagadol sela be'emet Lehodot lecha u'liachecha me'ava Baruch atah Adonai Abocher b'mo Yisrael be'ahava Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Yata Et Adonai Elohecha Bechol levavecha Ubechol nafshecha Ubechol meotecha Vehayu Hadmarim ha'ele Asher Anochi Metzavecha Ayom Alevavecha V'shinantam Levanecha V'dibarta b'av V'shivnecha B'beitecha Uvlektecha V'derech Uvshochbecha Uvkumecha Ukshartam Leo Al Yadecha V'hayu Letotafot B'neinecha Uchtavtam Beitecha Uvisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים להיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת אדוני אלוהיכם אמת לדור ודור קיים ושמו קיים וכיסון נכון ומלכותו ואמרתו ליד קיים את דבריו חיים וקיימים אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו מלכינו מלך אבותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו יוצאנו צור ישועתנו בראנו מצאנו מעולם שמך אין אלוהים זולתך עזרת אבותינו אתה ומעולם מגינו שילד אחרי בכל דור ודור אתה ראשון ואתה אחרון יום ברוך ומבורך, משה וישראל חנו שירה בשמחה רבה, יאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא שירה חדשה שיפו גדולים לשמך על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ובדנו ממה יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני God Israel. Private Amidah, pages 175 to 192. going to repeat the Amidah back on page 175. Adonai sifatai tiftach uvi yagid tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel chasadim tovim V'koneh hakol V'zocher chasdei avot U'mevi goel livnei v'neihem Leman shemo b'yahava Melech ozer u'moshiach u'magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham U'frokei Tzara Atah gibor le'olam Adonai Mechayim eitim atah rab le'hoshia Mashiva ruach u'morid hagashem Mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechayim eitim berachamim rabim Zomech noflim berofeh olim Umatir asurim Umekayem emunato lishenei afar Michamocha ba'al gevurot Umido melach Melech meimi Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'neman atah l'chachayot meitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh HaMeitim. We rise from the Kiddush Lunch, page 179. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam Keshem shemaqdishim oto b'shmei marom Kakatuv alei neviecha V'kara ze el ze ve'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzvaot Melech haaretz kevodo Az b'kol ra'ash gadol Adir v'chazak mashmi'im kol Mitnasim li'umat zerafim Li'umatam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimkom Chamalkeinu Tovia v'tivloch aleinu Kimech hakim Anachnu lach Matai timloch betzion Bekarov Yemenu le'olam ba'et tishkon Tidgadal v'tidgadash Le'toch Yerushalayim ircha Le'dor v'ador U'le'netzach netzachim Ve'eineinu tirena Malchutecha Kadavar ha'amur V'shirei uzecha Al yedei David Mashir tzidkecha Yimloch Adonai le'olam Elohai Tzion Ledor Vador Hallelujah Ledor Vador Nagid Godlecha U'lenetzach netzachim Kiddushacha Naqdish V'shivchach Eloheinu Mivinu Lo Yavush Le'olam Va'ed Kemal Kadosh Kadosh Ata Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated, page 181. Yismach, Yismach, Yismach Moshe b'matnat, b'matnat, b'matnat chelko Ki even ne'eman, ne'eman Aikarata lo, ay, Yismach, Yismach, Yismach Moshe b'matnat, b'matnat, b'matnat chelko Ki even ne'eman, ne'eman Aikarata lo. For the Latif עופרת בראשו נתת בעומדו לפניך הר סיני ושני לוחות אבנים הוריד בידו וכתוב בהם שמירת שבת וכן כתוב בתורתך ושם בבני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ונהיו בבני ישראל תידי עולם כי 12 לילה השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת ראינה ונתתו אדוני אלינו אלוקי ארצו ולא חנכתו מלכנו לעבדי פסילים וגם נתתו לישכנו ערלים כי לישראל עמך נתתו באהבה לזרע יעקב אשר בם בחרת מקדשי שביעי שבת כולם ישבעו ויתענגו בטובך שבת והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת כמדן ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית אלוהי אבותינו רצי מנוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך שמנו בטובך לשמחנו בישועתך וטהר ליבנו לעובדך באמת והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך ואנוכו בישראל מקדשי שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל ובתפילתם והשבת עבודה לברביתך ואישי ישראל ותפילתם באהבה תקבל מרצון ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון ונמנענו לה טוב כי לא יכול לרחמך ומרחם כי לא תמויס חסדיך מעולם קיווינו לך ועל כולם יברך ורומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד וחיים ברוך הסלע ועלו את שמך באמת אל ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע ברוך אתה אדוני עטו שמך לחנה להודות אלוהינו לאבותינו ברכנו בברכה המשולשת בתורה הכתובה על ידי משה עבדך האמורה מפי אהרון ובניו כהנים על קדושך כאמור יברך אדוני וישמרך יראה פניו אליך וקנך ישנא פניו אליך וישם לך שלום שים שלום טובה וברכה חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו שים שלום ועולם טובה וברכה חן וחסד ורחמים ועל כל ישראל עמך תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום שים שלום בעולם טובה וברכה חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני אברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. 193 קדיש שלם. קרבי קרשם רבה, ואמן יברח חירותי ועל נחמכותי וחייכון ויום החנכה לכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו יהי שמרה בבורך לעולם לעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח יתברם ונעשה ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה לעילם יקום ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בימה ואמרו תקבל צבאותיהם קורותיהם בכל ישראל קודם ובהם דיבי שמיה ואמרו נשלם רב מן שמיה חיים עלינו מערכו ישראל ואמרו עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו Today we will continue now with the Torah service, and Marshall, you'll just do the carrying. And can I ask? We have a tally keeper for you, Jessica. Can you come up to open the ark? And how about Lara? Why don't you come as well to open the ark? We have them up here if not, but you're on your way back there, so might as well. Page 195. אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום Avarachamim eitiva vertzoncha et Zion Divnei Chomot Yerushalayim Divnei Chomot Yerushalayim Tilecha Levad Batachnu Melech El Ram V'Nisa Adon Olamim. We rise as the ark is open. Ha'imim Soharot Vayomer Moshe Kuma Adonai Ve'afutu Oivecha Ve'anusu Mizanecha Mipanecha Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah Zion Tetzei Torah U'Devar Adonai Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'Kedushat Kadisha Yakira Onanemar Tu Sheman Yahei Ravakodama Tetivta Libim Memoraita Betashlim Mishalim Delibim Delimadecho Amam Yisrael Letavu Lechaim Velishlam Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadol Adonai Iti. When Aram Shemo Yachdav, remember as Marshall walks through, please don't touch or kiss the Torah, but you can hold your talit out and the air. Adonai Hagedu, Hagedu, Hatiferet, Ve'anetzach ve'ahod, Ki ol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Ki ol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Adonai ha'mamlacha, Ve'hamitaseh le'kol le'rosh Romebu, Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishtachavu, le'adam rak l'kadoshu, Romebu, Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishtachavu, le'har kodosho, Ikadosh Adonai Eloheinu. And we may be seated. We turn to page 474 for the Torah portion. The Parsha is Mishpatim, and it is, which means judgments or statutes, after the sort of big grand presentation of the Big Ten last week. Mishpatim is filled with, actually, I believe, the most mitzvot in the Torah, all kinds of how to live a life and build a society. Except that the part we're doing, the third journal, does not have that so much. It's mostly about what happens when we go into the land, and also kind of sets up Moses for going up to the mountain and receiving tablets, which of course sets up the golden calf. So that's kind of what we have here. The very first part, God says, I'm sending you a malach, an angel, to guard you on your journey. Except that, interestingly enough, as beautiful as that sounds, and it is beautiful, the angel's more of it's not so much watching over to make sure the Israelites are okay, more like watching over the Israelites to make sure they do the right thing and they observe the commandments. So that's this very first passage, chapter 23, verses 20 to 25. And I'll call upon David Goodwin for the first Aliyah, Kohen.
ויעזר ויגן וישיל לכל החוסים בו ונאמר אמן. כל הבוגר דלהרנו כבוד לתורה, כהן קרוב. יעמוד דוד בן חנניה הכהן, ברוך שנתן תורה לעם ישראל בקדושתו, ואתם מבכים אדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher chabanu mikol amim. Natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Tin HaTorah.
Amen. Hinei Anochi sholeach malach l'fanecha l'shamarach b'derech. Mashercha b'derech u'v'laviecha el hamakom asher hachinoti v'shomer mipanav u'shama b'kolo el tamer bo ki lo yiseh nefashichem ki shami b'kirbo ki im shamot tishma b'kolo Asita kol asher adaber, roivati et roivecha v'tzarti et zrarecha, ki yelech malachi lefanecha ve'aviecha el ha'omri ve'achiti, ha'emori ve'achiti ve'apusi ve'achnani, ha'avivi ve'apusi,
והכרתי לא תשתחווה אל אלוהם ולא אליהם ולא תעבדם ולא תעשה כמעשיהם כי חרש תהרסם תשבר מצבותיהם ועבודתם את ה' אלוהיכם וברך את לחמך ואת לבנך והסירותי מחלה מקרבך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי לנו אתה בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
The second Aliyah, chapter 23, verses 26 through 30 in the book of Exodus. All the people will be thrown into a panic as the Israelites overtake the land. Thank you, Steve Steiner, for reading Torah. Rami Kaufman will be the next Torah reader, and we call upon Rami Halbert for the next Aliyah.
Yamad, Ami Albert, Ben Avram, Sheni.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר חרבנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן לתורה.
Amen.
Amen. לא תהיה משפילה והכרה בארצך את מספר ימיך המלא אל עמודי אשלח לפניך והמותי את כל אשר תבוא בהם ונתתי את כל אויביך אליך עורף ושלחתי את הצירה לפניך וגירשה את החיבי את הכנעני ואת החיתי מלפניך לא אגרשנו מפניך בשנה אחת הן תהיה הארץ שממה ורבה לך חיית השדה מעט מעט אגרשנו מפניך אשר תקרא ונחלת
את הארץ.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת והעולם אתה בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן לתורה.
Amen.
The third Aliyah, the rest of chapter 23, verses 31 through 33. The borders, the future borders, are determined from Yam Suf to Yam Hadashtim, so the Mediterranean Sea. And when you get into the land, don't make a covenant with the gods of the people who are there. It'll get you into trouble.
Yamad, Daniel ben David, Shlishi. Baruch Adonai HaMavarach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher B'Charvanu Mikol Amim V'Natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. ושבתי כבודך ויחשוף ידיו פלישתים ומדבר הנהר כי יבתם בידכם את יושבי הארץ וגירשתם מפניך לא תכרות להם ולאלוהיהם ברית לא ישבו בארצך הם יחתיו אותך לי כי תעבוד את אלוהיהם כי יהיה לך למוקש.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'Chayei Olam Nata B'Tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
We're now in chapter 24, verses 1 through 6. The people say they'll do what God asks. Moses writes down all the commandments, and they set up an altar with 12 pillars, And you may be imagining a kind of Stonehenge kind of a thing right there in the middle of the desert, which, I mean, whatever it is, there were rocks. I imagine like the little rock things that in Morro Bay, if you go by the big giant rock, there's like all these people make these stacks of rock formations. So you can build altars with whatever rocks you have. That's what's in my mind when I saw this passage.
Talmud. Via Shalamas Ben Chaim Revi'i. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bo karbanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yom Moshe Amar Alecha Adonai, Atav Yaharon Nadav Yavihu, V'shivim Yiziknei Yisrael, V'ishtachvitem Miracho. V'nigash Moshe Levado Adonai, V'heim lo yigashu, V'ha'am lo ya'alu imo. V'yavo Moshe, V'saper la'am, Et kol divrei Adonai, V'et kol ha'mishpatim, V'yan kol ha'am, Kol echad v'yomeru, Kol ha'dvarim, Asher diber Adonai na'aseh, V'yiktov Moshe, Et kol divrei Adonai, V'yashkem b'boker, V'yimen mizbeach tachat ha'or, V'shtei Mitzrayim atzeva, L'shnei Masor Shivtei Yisrael, V'yishlach, and Na'arei b'nei Yisrael, V'yamlu, V'yizbechu, Zvachim Shlamim, L'Adonai Karim, V'yikach Moshe Chatzi Adam, V'yasem Haganot, V'chatzi Adam, Zarah, HaMizbeach.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah v'net, Hayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
We are on the fifth Aliyah, chapter 24, verses 7 through 11. The blood of covenant spreads on the people Moses, Nadav, Abihu, and the elders ascend under God's feet, and it's described like pavement of sapphire. It's a very beautiful, beautiful image. But there's some foreshadow here because Nadav and Abihu are going to get too close to God the next time around in the book of Numbers and get zapped. Chapter 24, verses 7 through 11. And we call upon Joe and Sheila Millman for this fifth Aliyah.
Yamdu Yosef Yaakov Ben Binyamin Sarah Bat Hillel V'chana Chamishi.
Baruchu et Adonai HaBarak.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBarak Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'harbanu mikol ha'amim, v'na'atan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'yikach sefer habrit, v'yikra b'ozneim, v'yomeru, kol asher diber Adonai na'aseh v'nishma. V'yikach Moshe b'dam, v'yizrok al ha'am, v'yomer, hinei dam habrit, asher karat Adonai imachem, al kol advarim ha'eleh. Vayal Moshe v'Aharon, Nadav Yavihu, v'shivim miziknei Yisrael, v'yiru et Elohei Yisrael, v'tachat ragalav, v'maseh limnot ha'sapir, v'etzem ha'shamayim latohar, v'yalatzilei b'nei Yisrael, lo shalach yado, v'yechazu et ha'elohim, v'yochlu, v'yishtu.
Asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayi olam natan b'toheinu baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
And the sixth Aliyah, Moses goes up to the mountain to receive the stone tablets. It says, "Wait for me, I'll return. Aaron and Hur will be in charge." But we already know, the reader already knows two things. One, they're not going to very well be in charge, and that return is going to be a lot longer than the people anticipate. And for the sixth Aliyah, we call upon Dan and Megan Shekin. Give them all your names. Good. Keep it great. Too late.
Yondu. Yonden. Yitzchak. Miriam bat Abraham Yocheved Shishi.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher בחר banu mechol העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Aleh Elai ha'ara v'yasham, v'yatana lecha et lukot ha'evet, v'atorah v'mitzvah, asher katabti lehotam. Vayakom Moshe v'Yoshua b'sharato, vayal Moshe el har ha'Elohim, v'el hazakenim amar shvu lanu hazeh, ad asher nashuv aleichem, v'hinei Aharon b'chorim lachem, v'ba'al devarim yigash aleichem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chai olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
The seventh Aliyah, chapter 24, verses 15 through 18. God is a pillar of fire and pillar of cloud as a presence on the mountain. And call upon Jana and Dragon for the seventh Aliyah.
Talmud Malka Elisheva B'Chaim V'Sara Shavihi.
Baruch Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher בחר banu mikol ha'amim, ונתן לנו את תורתו. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Vayal Moshe el har, v'yikas enan et ha'ar, v'yishkan kavod Adonai al har Sinai, v'yikaseu et enan sheshet yamim, v'yikra Moshe v'yom hashvi'i mitov anan, u'marech kavod Adonai ke'esh ochelet b'rosh ha'ar le'einei b'nei Yisrael, v'yavo Moshe בתוך ענן ויעל ההר, ויהי משה בהר 40 יום ו40 לילה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Please rise for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yikadal, Yikadash Merabah.
Amen.
Yibrakir Tev Yamlich Machutev.
V'chayefon Yom Echon U'prayed Echol Beit Yisrael. Bagala, Bagala, Uvizman Karim. Amen. Yeshne Rabba Memora. Yavam Eomaya Yipara.
Yipara, Pishtabak, Arvi Raman Vitnase, Vita Dar, Vita Le, Vita Lal, Shemer Kudasha, Elah, Min Kaber Chata, Veshirata,
Kiddush Chata V'nechemata Damiran Me'alma.
Mimaru,
Amen. We may be seated as we repeat those last verses, and we call upon Larry Miller for the Maftir Aliyah.
Yamad, Levi Ben Zeb Chana Hamavtir.
Baruch Adonai Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch Elam Moed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'karbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Vayal Moshe lahar b'chas elad v'har. Vayishkan k'b'Adonai al har Sinai. ויחסה אלעד 6 ימים, ויקרא אל משה, ביום השביעי מתחת ענן, ומועד דבר אדוני, כאיש אוכל בראש ההר, לעיני בני ישראל. ויבוא משה בתוך ענן ויעל על ההר, ויהי משה בהר 40 יום ו40 לילה.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Who's a blessing for all who read? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. וישבח עבדנו אברהם יצחק ויעקב סבב כל החלב עליה יברך וכל פרים אשר עלו היום לכבוד המקום לכבוד התורה ולכבוד השבת. הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אותם ואת משפחותם וישלח לך בהצלחה מהכל הזה ידיהם כל שלכם ונאמר
Amen.
And we're thinking especially of those in our community who are ill. Today we're thinking of Scott Lawrence, Dahlia Bat Razel, Barbara Rose, Lou Burl, Lilia Oak, Karina Gola Bat Adam Yehuda Tzvi, Leah Hudit Bat Shena, Shabtai Dil Ben Shimon Moshe, Ray Ramshaw, Albert Alter, Rosie Berman, Yechiel Ben Eliza, Shulamit Bat Leah, Miriam Bat Hudit, Adele Mendelson, Marina Gottschalk, Carmel Correa Bat Ariel Sara, Yehudit Bat Miriam V'Aharon, David Gubman, Elizabeth Bat Raphael Ben Esther, Moshe Ben Ruvain, Renate Venus, Mordechai Moshe Ben Dov Ber, Naomi Sofer, Asa Arnon Ben Sarah, Sima Miriam Bat Silka, Esther Rivka Bat Rachel, Moshe Ben Haidel Shena. Do you have any other names of those who are ill? Please say them aloud at this time. Yishbeva Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel Leah Uyivarech V'Yirapeh El HaCholim El Narefana healed. May we continue to be with them in their time of need. We rise now for Hagla and Galila. We call upon Rick, Heber, and Alice Hale.
Yamad, Magvir, Kamad, Hagaleles.
Yitzod HaTorah, Asher Son Moshe, Livnei Yisrael, B'yad Adonai, B'yad Moshe. Eitz Chaim Hi L'Machazikim Ba'avetam, Ve'amerushar. Eitz Chaim Hi L'Machazikim Ba'avetam, Ve'amerushar.
We may be seated. We turn to page 482 for the Haftarah, coming from Jeremiah 34. In the Torah portion, although not the part we read, are some of the laws on the releasing of slaves during the sabbatical year. And Jeremiah is talking to his own community, which says, hey, we're not following that law as we should be. And so, that's it. It's a typical Jeremiah. That's where that word actually comes from, as he cautions the people to start obeying those very important laws.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bacha b'nbi'im tovim v'ratzah v'divreihem ha'ne'amarim b'yamet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'torah u'Moshe avdo Yisrael amo, u'v'nbi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Hadavar asher haya el Yirmiyahu meit Adonai acharei karot HaMelech Tzidkiyahu Barit et kol ha'am asher b'Yerushalayim likro lahem deror v'shalach ish et avdo v'yish et shifkato Ha'ivri v'ha'ivri achashim V'vilti yavadam Yehudi achihu ish V'yishmu Kol hasorim v'chol ha'am Asher ba'u v'abrit L'shalach ish et avdo Vayish et shivkato chavshim Levilti avad b'amor Vayishmeu vayishalechu Vayashuvu achrechein Vayashivu et avadim v'et hashpachot Asher shilchu chavshim ויכבשו לעבדים ולשפחות, ויהי דבר אדוני אל ירמיהו, מאת אדוני לאמור, כה אמר אדוני אלוהי ישראל, אנוכי קראתי ברית את אבותיכם, ביום הוציאי אותם מארץ מצרים, מבית עבדים לאמור, מקץ 7 שנים תשלחו איש את אחיו העברי אשר ימכר לך בידך 6 שנים ושילחתו חופשי מעמו, ולא שמעו אבותיכם אלי, ולא חיטו את אוזנם, ותשובו אתם היום, ותעשו את הישר בעיניי, לקרוא דרור איש לרעהו, ותכרתו בריק לפניי בבית אשר נקרא שמי עליו, ותשובו ותעלו את שמי, ותשיבו איש את עבדו ואיש את שפחתו, אשר שלחתם השין לנפשם, ותכבשו אותם להיות לכם לעבדים ולשפחות. לכן כה אמר אדוני, אתם לא שמעתם אלי, לקרוא דרור איש לאחיו ואיש לרעהו, הנני קורא לכם דרור, נאמר אדוני, אל החרב, אל הדבר ואל הרעב, ונתתי אתכם לזבוא לכל ממלכות הארץ, ונתתי את האנשים העוברים את בריתי, אשר לא הקימו את דברי הברית, אשר כרתו לפניי, העגל אשר כרתו לשניים, ויעברו בין בתריו, שרי יהודה ושרי ירושלים, הסריסים והכהנים, וכל עם הארץ העוברים בין פתרי העגל, ונתתי אותם ביד אויביהם וביד מבקשי נפשם, והייתה נבלתם למחול לעוף השמיים ולבהמת הארץ, את צדקיהו מלך יהודה ואת שריו אתן ביד אויביהם וביד מבקשי נפשם, וביד מלך בבל העולים מעליכם. הנני מצווה נאמר אדוני, והשיב אותי אל העיר הזאת, ונלחמו עליה, וכדוה שרופה באש, ואת ערי יהודה אתן שממה מעין יושב. כה אמר אדוני, אם לא בריתי יומם ולילה, חוקות שמיים וארץ לא שמתי. V'David avdi emas mikachat mizaro moshlim el zera Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov ki ashivet shvutam v'richamtim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam tzur kol olamim tzadik b'chol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'yoseh hamdaber u'kayem shekol devarav emet v'tzedek ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'ne'emanim devarecha v'devarecha midvarecha achol lo yashuv reikam Ki el melech ne'eman v'rachaman ata baruch ata Adonai poel ne'eman b'chol devarav rachem al Tzion ki hi beit chayenu v'lalu vad nefesh toshia b'mehera b'yomenu baruch ata Adonai misamech Tzion b'manecha samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu Be'eliyahu hanavi avdecha, u'malchut Beit David mishichecha, b'mehera yavo, v'yagel libenu, al kiso lo yeshev zor, v'lo yinchalu rachrim et kavodo, ki v'shem kachecha nishbata lo, shelo yichben nera li'olam voed, baruch ata Adonai, magen David, al haTorah, v'al ha'avodah, v'al hanvim, v'ayom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'linucha, lichavod u'tiforet, al ha'kol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, u'mavarachim otach, yitbarech shimcha, B'fi kol chai tamid li'olam voed, baruch atah Adonai, mikadesh ha'shabbos.
Thank you so much, Larry. I'm going to turn now to the Blessing of the New Month on page 227. Actually, no, before I do that, we'll do the Prayer for the State of Israel on 224. Then the Blessing of the New Month. Our Av that is in heaven, Rock and Redeemer of Israel and its Redeemer, bless the state of Israel, the first flowering of our redemption. Shield her with the wings of your loving kindness. Spread over her the shelter of your peace. Send your light and your truth to her heads of state, her ministers and her advisors. Restore them with good counsel before you. Strengthen the hands of those who defend your holy land. Bequeath to them our God's salvation. Adorn them with a crown of triumph, and grant peace in the land and eternal joy to its inhabitants. And let us say, Amen. Now we're going to turn to the blessing of the new month. Marsh wants to come up and hold the Torah. I ask you all to please rise. The month of Adar Rishon. There's 2 Adars this year, which makes it a leap year. It also means the Orthodox list will be very short next month. If you don't understand that, I can explain it another time. But Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon begins on Tuesday and Wednesday, Yom Shlishi v'Yom Revi'i. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu shekadesh aleinu et hachodesh haba L'tova v'livracha v'titen lanu chayim aruchim chayim shel shalom chayim shel tova chayim shel bracha chayim shel parnasah chayim shel chilutz atzamot chayim sheyesh bahem yirat shamayim v'yirat chet chayim she'en bahem busha u'chlima chayim shel osher v'chavod Chaim shetihei vanu avat Torah v'yirat shamayim chaim shemalu mishalot libenu letova Amen Selah Mishe asa nisim lavotenu V'galotam me'avdut lecherut, v'galotanu b'karov, v'kabetzin dechenu me'arba kanfot ha'aretz, v'avrim kol Yisrael, v'nomar amen. Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon, yeh b'yom ha'shishi, v'yom ha'revi'i, abba aleinu v'al kol Yisrael l'tova. Shev Kadosh Baruch Hu Aleinu ve'al kol Beit Yisrael l'chaim u'shalom l'sason u'simcha l'yeshua u'nechama v'nomar amen. We may be seated as the Torah is placed back down on the stand. We invite our Vav and Zion students to come up and lead us in Ashrei, page 231. Bring your Siddur. Yes, we have 6 between the 2 classes today. Very, very exciting. One more coming. Come on. Oh, no, one more? Yeah. Yeah, go on. They're all checked off. There are pizza parties coming up, from what I understand.
Yes.
And we rise to the return of the Sefer Torah to the Ark. And remember, as it comes out, we're not touching it, kissing it these days, but we are taking it out for the Hakafah. Halu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkav shemo levado, ha'alerech, v'shamayim, v'yorem kerem yam. And Laura and Jessica, come on up again. Asina libnei Yisrael ha'shirovo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Adonai Elohim, Adonai Gimel Kol Adonai, Kol Zechavodei, Kol Adonai, Yachil Ibar, Mar Kadesh, Kol Adonai, Kol Hayalot. Adonai Lamoya, Shabbat Yeshem Adonai, Melech Leolam, Adonai Oz Le'alo Yitei, Adonai Yehovah, U'B'Chol Yomar, Yeshua, Natati Lachem Torati Al Tazovu, Eitz Hayim Lemachazima V'Tokema Merujar Derachea V'Noam V'Chol Netivotea Shalom Ashivenu Adonai Elech Habenam Shuvah Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Amen. All right, we may be seated. And today's sermon is rated V for for possibly violent imagery or just a topic. So D for disturbing, L for length. There's whatever trigger warning or PG-13 warning I can put on it is what we have today. So just so you know. And it's called What I Was Glad I Said, What I Wish I Said, and What I Wish I Could Have Said. So first of all, thank you to Lisa Fernandez for getting me on the news and getting this topic on the news, talking about increase in anti-Semitism, flyers in San Francisco, the events in Colleyville, Texas. So I was on KTVU Channel 2 News on Monday. And before I get into what I actually said, and I know a few of you have already heard this story, but I want to remind myself, ourselves, of the first time I was on the news as a rabbi. I was actually a rabbinical student. And what happened was they came to Hebrew Union College, the rabbinical school, to get the rabbinical students' reaction to John Demyanyuk, who was a Nazi guard, but it was questionable whether he was the right person. And it turned out he was the wrong person. But that's only partly relevant to the story. They interviewed, this was not live television, this was your more typical edited story. And they asked me about the incident. They probably interviewed me for close to 5 minutes, and I remember mostly saying that I was proud that Israel had a justice system where at least somebody had a fair trial. And then, so what, of course, did they put on the news? The lead up was, Demyanyuk is wrongly convicted or something like that. And then my quote, I'm proud of Israel's justice system, right? It was just the worst possible thing. However, there was a silver lining to that, in that for background, so before they started interviewing us, they had a scene of us playing basketball, a pickup basketball game in our gym. Now, I am actually a fairly decent athlete. I think I'm actually pretty good at soccer. I'm at least decent at softball and football, but at basketball, I'm just terrible. And that's even for it's not because I'm short. I mean, even for my size, like I'm just horrible at basketball. I can't play at all. And the lead up to it, they showed me making the game-winning shot, right? So that was the silver lining to that. Anyway, that was my first experience being on TV as a rabbi or rabbinical student. So this event was actually live. It was live Zoom, but it was live, so whatever I said was going to be put on. Also want to just allude to the Parsha for a second, where in chapter 20, verse 23, the beginning of the Parsha, it says, Hine anochi sholech malach lefanecha lishmorcha. Behold, I, God, am sending an angel before you to watch over you. And while the context is really something other than what it appears to be, if you look at it in context, it's like this angel is going to make sure you follow the mitzvot. You know, it's a nice line in and of itself that somebody's watching over us even in times of trouble. And I know that it does not feel that way right now to be Jewish in America, that we are getting watched over by Hashem. So now to the interview, what I was glad I said, what I wish I said, and what I wish I could have said. So what I was glad I said, it's tough to be a Jew. When they asked, what do you tell people? What do you tell your own people? I said it's tough to be a Jew. And when you're in a public appearance and you know, even though I'm just basically in our den office and I'm on a screen, but I know this is public, and have to resist the urge to be optimistic and hopeful when the story is, and the reality is, it's tough to be a Jew. And, you know, when a kid, particularly an older kid, would ask me, you know, what do we do about this? I mean, or not what do we do about this, but, you know, what do we say? That's what I say, because that's the truth. That's the reality, and I am glad that I said that. I'm glad that I said it's a century-old problem, right? These flyers, they seem shocking. That was I think, part of the lead-in of the interview. They're not shocking at all if you follow history, recent or ancient. I was glad that I said that we have security, just in case someone was wondering if we're an easy target, and that it's necessary to have security. I'm sad that it's necessary to have security, but it's necessary to have security mostly for peace of mind. Okay, the math is we're going to be very safe, right? But for peace of mind, and you never know, I'm glad we have security. And then finally, I was glad that I said that it's very hard, because he asked, what do you say to those outside the Jewish community? And I'm glad that I said it's hard to get people to understand how alone we feel as Jews sometimes. Those were all important things, and I'm glad that in those few minutes that I was able to have enough sense and calm to say those things. Now here's what I wish I said. When asked, what do you tell your kids, students, you know, that's tough to be a Jew, that part was fine. And also that I mentioned that it's no longer theoretical, but it's a reality in kids, particularly teens' lives. When I started 20 years ago here, and I would talk about anti-Semitism in confirmation class, it was a history book kind of thing for the kids. It's not anymore. They know it. They know it well. But I should have said, especially through social media, and I actually said the line, would they read it in the paper? Are you kidding? So I meant to say on social media where they are confronted with it the most and the most often. And then when asked what you say to the people outside the Jewish community, I'm glad I said that it's hard to get people to understand how alone we feel, but I should have used the term allies, and we need allies. And I should have mentioned that, and although this is harsh and people don't want to hear it, when a Jewish person tells you that something is anti-Semitic, you should believe them. You should listen to them. You should never dismiss them. Now, the longest part of this sermon is what I wish I could have said, right? But first of all, I don't have enough time. Second of all, it's not appropriate for media. And third of all, it's a dissertation and would not have been appropriate. But what I wish I could have said, and this is the part that I know not everyone will even agree with in this room, but that I am every bit as worried about the subtle things that create the atmosphere, that create anti-Semitism in the atmosphere for people like Malik Faisal Akram, the man who went and held the hostages in Colliesville. I'm as worried about those subtle things and not so subtle things as I am about the incident itself. Because people like him follow the things that leaders say. And in what is a common theme, I'm worried about this on both the right wing and the left wing. And I'm going to tell you a couple examples in both cases. On the right wing, I'm worried about this. This is Mouse, which was prominently featured in the news this week. Now, Mouse is what they call a graphic novel, but it's really a graphic memoir. And it's, decades old. And it's a terribly disturbing and depressing book about the Holocaust. But the reason it was banned from a school district in Tennessee had nothing to do with its disturbing content about the Holocaust, nudity and curse words, I guess. I certainly do not remember those at all. I can tell you that no kid is going to the library bookshelf to find the naked pig or cat or whatever might be in this book. Is the mouse that's naked? Oh, I know it's cats and mouse, and the pigs are the poles. So I'm not sure who appears naked, but right, it must be the mice who are the.
No one's naked in book one.
So no one's naked in book one. Maybe in book two, whatever it is. That's not what they're going to. Now, there are two silver linings to this part of the story. One is that the district said, we're not teaching the Holocaust. In fact, we know how important it is to teach the Holocaust. So that was at least good. But even more than that, this book's going to get a whole new round of people looking at it, and that's a really, really good thing. But the overall idea that school districts are into banning books and books that aren't really even that edgy is terrible. Okay, that is the atmosphere that I'm talking about. And I'm going to have this for us. If you want to have a look at it, Kiddush Lunch, you've never seen it, you can all look at it. I'm also worried about something that former President Donald Trump said a few months ago, which is F Netanyahu. Okay? I don't know how many of you noticed that. A lot of you don't like Netanyahu. You might have said, well, at least they're telling like it is. But it's terrible. And he accused him of disloyalty for congratulating Biden, and being the first to congratulate Biden, which he wasn't. It took him like a day. But, people blindly follow him in particular. And he's got a lot of power, as we all know, still in the Republican Party. And so if he says Netanyahu's bad, people take that to mean Israel's bad, Jews are bad, and it's that atmosphere that's going to be very, very dangerous. That was just a horrible thing that he said. You might not have liked that they were friends when they were both in office together, but him saying that is frightening. Now on the left-wing side. I'm worried about the continuing attacks on Israel, and particularly the way those are focused on Jewish power and influence. And there's been a progression, which I'm going to mention from various leaders, starting with Linda Sarsour, who of all things, I remember this, I'm sure most of you didn't hear about it, see it, notice it, but I certainly did. It was a rally for Colin Kaepernick, okay? Why she was speaking at a rally for Colin Kaepernick, I have no idea, except I do have an idea. It's the organizers who want to link all these things together in intersectionality. And she's giving a speech about the problems, with the way people are treating Colin Kaepernick, and blaming right-wing Zionists, okay, at a rally for Colin Kaepernick, kneeling for the national anthem, okay? I mean, utterly ridiculous and unrelated. But the enemy is the right-wing Zionists. Now you have the person who runs the CARE organization, which is kind of like an ADL for Muslims, but not really. And it's no longer right-wing Zionists. She says, when we talk about Islamophobia, we think oftentimes about the vehement fascists. But I also want us to pay attention to the polite Zionists. The ones that say, let's just break bread together. They are not your friends. And she particularly mentioned the ADL, Jewish federations, Hillels, and Zionist synagogues. A deliberate strategy is to not have peaceful dialogue. with the mainstream Jewish community. And then the third step, which isn't quite as openly bad as that, but it is just as bad, is the Liberated Ethnic Studies curriculum, which was just adopted by the San Leandro School District. Now, it's a tough one to follow. There's a lot of bouncing balls here. It essentially started with the California State Legislature wanting to make ethnic studies a requirement in all high schools in California. The legislators in particular envisioned learning about the many cultures that we have in California. But that's not what ethnic studies is as a discipline in college. Ethnic studies is a little bit about that, but it is mostly about power structures, and it sees the world in very black and white terms, and there's good guys and bad guys, and it's more of an anti-white supremacist curriculum than it is anything else. It also, the Liberated Ethnic Studies department is more than just critical of Israel. It is a part and parcel of what they want to do is to make Israel into an enemy and to question, that's too weak a word, its right to exist, and to paint it as racist, apartheid, and colonialist wherever they can. So the state actually rejected, I'm giving a little bit of the bouncing ball history, they gave it over to this Ethnic Studies Committee, which was made mostly of college professors and a few high school teachers. They presented it, the state rejected its curriculum because it was too extreme, and it was, I would say, fully on anti-Semitic in particular places. They adopted their own curriculum, which the JCRC, the ABL, and lots of other people worked to make acceptable. The state finally accepted it, but now the Liberated Ethnic Studies people are going district by district, asking them to adopt their curriculum instead of the state curriculum, and no longer beholden to what the state believes or thinks, they're making it worse and worse and worse. And so, because they have no oversight. I'm just going to read you a little bit of one of their statements, not their actual curriculum, because that's still hidden for the moment. It's important for us as educators to understand the nature of the attacks and where they're coming from. These aren't spontaneous protests from random individuals. They are led, organized, and financed by Zionist organizations in the United States and Israel. Zionism is a nationalist colonial ideology that from the late 19th century on has called for the creation and expansion of Israel as a Jewish state in historic Palestine by any means necessary. Zionist organizations have stepped up their efforts to silence discussion of Palestine in movement circles on college campuses and now in K-12 education. The Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Community Resource Council, which is actually not the right name, JCRC, and Simon Wiesenthal's Museum of Tolerance are some of the most active Zionist organizations fighting against Palestine curriculum K-12. All three organizations have tried to position themselves as advocates and experts on anti-bias education. However, as Zionist organizations, their primary goal is to stunt the development of authentic anti-racist curricula. Primary goal. Now, this is 2022. Maybe it feels like 1938 to you. It certainly feels like 1984 with all that doublespeak. Now, what do we do about it? So, there was actually an article in the Wall Street Journal, which David Goodwin directed me to, or editorial, and the writer said, what you do about it is you just assimilate, because the only people being threatened are Jews who like their Judaism, and Jews who go to synagogue, and Jews who go to kosher markets. Okay? That's the only people in danger. Otherwise, we're free to be wholly who we are in America, and it cites the example that we can get into any country club we want today. So, all right. I mean, I know it's absurd. Okay, so first of all, the flyers that were put in San Francisco were about all the Jews who were involved in COVID, right? Probably, I would guess, if they're a sample size, 80% of them don't belong to a synagogue, at least. Okay? And probably only 1 or 2 of them go to a kosher store, right? I mean, it's absurd, right? And there's a good chance, I didn't look at the list, that a couple of them aren't even Jewish, just have Jewish-sounding names. So that's just factually wrong. And second of all, read history much? Okay, how about the assimilationist Jews in Spain? Or in Germany? Or in, Turkey, for that matter? I mean, it's a ridiculous claim. In fact, I would take the opposite approach. Be proud of your Judaism. It earns respect from more and more people and makes people who know you less likely to hate Jews. Be faithful, or be informed. It's the only way to educate. And finally, be faithful. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Believe or don't believe that God is with you, or the angels that began this parsha are with you. Find angels, real human beings, as allies to help us along the way. Be proud, be informed, be faithful. And later this afternoon when I go home, although this isn't the media, I will, once again, at least in my head, go back and think about what I was glad I said, what I wish I said, and what I wish I could have said. Shabbat Shalom.
We'll get you on again.
Sounds good.
We'll do something next week. Sure.
Sounds good. All right, so enough of me. So thankfully, Tamar Brynas has agreed to lead us in our Musaf service. We're going to rise. Begins on page 239.
Yikadal v'yikadal shemei rabba Be'amad yivrachute be'amlich malchute B'chayechon u'vyomechon U'vayedecho be'Yisrael Ba'hagala U'mizman karim v'yimeru Amen Yehei shmei rabba mevorach Le'olam Vishtabach, Vipar, Vichomam, Vinase, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shmei Kudesha, Le'elam, Minkol Berchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'ne'emata, Damiram, Le'alma, V'meru, Amen. Adonai, Sevatar Tivtach, Ufi, Agite, Gilatecha, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Gadol Mabor b'Menorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Asei Avot, U'revi Noel L'nei Leman Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham U'chokei Tzara, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Metim Atah Moshiach, Mashik HaRuach, Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Metim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Beracheh Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayei ata l'chayot metim. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hametim. Na'arutzecha v'na'akdishecha kesod tzufiyah zarfei kodesh ha'makdishim shimcha b'kodesh kakatuv al yad nebiyecha v'karazeh zeh omar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzevaot melech haaretz Kevodo Kevodo malei olam b'shar tav sholim zeh lazeh Ayin mekom kvodo matam baruch yomeru Baruch Adonai mikomo hu yiften berahamim v'yachon amam yachetim shemo erev b'boker b'chol yom tamid Pamayim be'ahava shema omrim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Mosheinu, Vehu Yashmeinu Berachamav, Sheni Le'enei Kol Chai, Sheni Le'enei Kol Chai. Liot Lachem Elohim. Be very good. Chakatu lemor. Ledor vador. Ledor vador. Ledor vador nagid lecha. Ledor vador. Ledor vador. Ledor vador nagid lecha. Ulenetzach netzachim. Ulenetzach netzachim. Kidushatecha nagdish. V'shifchacha Eloheinu mipinu le'yamush. Le'olam va'ed. Ledor vador. Ledor vador. Ledor vador nagid kol lecha. Ledor vador. Ledor vador. Ledor vador nagid kol lecha. Ki hamelech gadol, gadol v'kadosh, gadol v'kadosh atah. Ki hamelech gadol, gadol v'kadosh, gadol v'kadosh atah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Amen. Continue on our own, page 247 through 258.
Yaseh Shalom Bimromav. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Ve'imru, Nimru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, ve'almad yivrachute ve'amlich malchute, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayeduko be'Yisrael, v'galav b'zman karib v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach, ve'olam olam ve'omaya yitvarach. Yitvarach v'yishtabach, v'yitvar v'yitshomam v'yinaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalash medekudashah. Ve'elam yitko birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'ne'amata damiran ve'oma v'imeru. Amen. Tikabal tzatachon u'vatachon d'cho Yisrael, kodam u'lohani v'shmaya v'imeru. Amen. Yehi shlam Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Aseh shalom b'mramav, yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen.
Come on out now. Steve, I think you got a fun job today. More and more, there's still more coming. Please rise, Elena. Go see David.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tetu l'yotzer reshit, shelo asanu kiryei haratzot, velo samanu mishpachot hadama, shelo samhakinu kahem, v'goralinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishpachavim u'motim, v'fei melech malchot ha'lamim, ha'kadosh baruch hu, she'emunot shamayim ve'yoser ha'aretz, u'masher v'karo ha'shamayim imahal, v'shchinat tizol, v'kochei meromim, hu Eloheinu ve'erot, emet malkeinu et b'tfilato, k'katu b'torato, v'yadata yom v'hashakota, v'levavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, v'shamayim imahal, ve'al haaretz Yakiru me'yetu, o yeshvete
be seated as we lovingly recall the memory of our departed relatives and friends whose yortsites we observed during the coming week. We're thinking especially today of Lillian Adler, Helen Aldeth, Samuel Vandell, Eric Baum, Elizabeth Bernstein, Frida Blatter, Hyman Brodke, Raymond Shun, Abraham Elbert, Paul Gilday, Dorothy Glasser, Kalman Gluck, Karen's grandmother, Shirley Goldberg, or I should say Mama, not grandmother, as they say in the Philadelphia area, Helen Golden, Pearl Goodman, Irving Garonkin, Joseph Gould, Shirley Gould, Samuel Aaron Grinberg, Rose Hillman, Samuel Jackson, Goldine Jacobs, Joseph Kay, Julius Cohn, Rose Kotz, Joseph Gvint, Joel Lalone, Simon Lurch, Marion Morris, Benjamin Otovich, Bernard Pollock, Melissa Ann Powers, Irma Robinson, Ruth Roth, Milton Weiner, Leonard Wolf, Sam Wolf. And we are in the Shloshim for Tom Rose, the brother of Michael Rose, and Sherman Gollop, the father of Seth Gollop. The memories of all who are with us. We ask all those who are in mourning or observing Yortzeit, as well as anyone else who would choose to do so, to rise from the mourner's Kaddish. It's on page 267. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah V'elma divrach Hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayechon Beit Yisrael Bagalav Yizman Kariv v'imru Amen Yehei Shemei Rabbah v'orach v'elam v'yamaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Kudsha Revu La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran be'alma v'yibru Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya V'chaim aleinu be'al kol Yisrael v'yibru Amen Oseh shalom b'mromav Huya aseh shalom Aleinu be'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru Amen. Zichronam livracha. May the memory of the people you've come to say Kaddish for be a blessing to you always. And let's say Amen. All right, a few announcements. Well, let's start with the thank yous. Thank you to our Torah readers, Susan Simon, Audrey Kaufman, and Steve Steiner, to our Haftorah reader, Larry Miller, and thank you to Tamar Brinus for leading us in Musaf. I also want to thank Jacqueline Paulchik and the rest of the Machina organizers for it wasn't kindergartners leading the service, but they sponsored the Kiddush, and they got together to do that, so thank you. Whoever else helped you organize that, we really appreciate it. The Kiddush Lunch, which will follow the Kiddush and Motzi, is kid-friendly. It's grilled cheese, tomato soup, French fries, mini cupcakes, so lots of good stuff. I want to thank Josh Mailman for allowing us to stream. Let's see, what else do we have? We've got, well, this week it's kind of a normal week. We've got Hebrew School, Beit Sefer. We've got Gant. We've got Minyan Monday and Thursday at 8. We've got weekly text study at 9 a.m. on Zoom before Shabbat services next Saturday, and on Wednesday at 9 a.m. at Rocky's Brooklyn Basement. We've got Adult Aleph Bet. We've got Confirmation, Tichon. All the regular things are happening this week. Next Friday night, although there'll only be one service, but it will be abbreviated because it's also Bet Shara Shabbat, and it's in here. Next Saturday is a normal service. I don't know what, just regular service, but the Saturday after that, on February 12th, May Goldman becomes Bat Mitzvah. So, all good, exciting stuff. I also just want to, I read his name, but I want to recall Leonard Wolf. Does anyone besides me remember Leonard Wolf, right? What a sweet, sweet man, right? Just a mensch, very menschy guy. I mean, his memory is definitely a blessing to me. So, we're going to conclude with the Don Olam, and don't go far, or don't go anywhere, because we're going to do Kiddush and Motzi up here before we release you downstairs for the yummy food. page 269. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra V'yitnasa v'chetzo Kol Azay Melech Shemo Nikra V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Hayan V'hu Hoved V'hu Yeh B'tifara V'hu Echad B'Sheni L'hamshilo l'hachvira V'li reshit v'li tachlit V'lo ha'oz v'ha'misra V'hu eli v'chai godi V'tzorchem li v'etzara V'hu nisi u'manos li Menat kozi v'yom ekra V'yado avkiruchi V'etishan v'ya'ira V'imruchi geviati Adonai li v'lo ira Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem kol yetzir nivra V'nasa v'chetzo kol Azay melech shemo nikra Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem kol yetzir nivra V'nasa v'chetzo kol Azay melech shemo nikra. Now, I'm still expecting, except even though I already went and asked and no bread magically appeared. So, I don't know, Ann or Jerry, could you go down to the kitchen and even if there's no whole challah, just find some magic piece of bread? Please rise. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat v'dorot merid olam v'ni b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam oti le'olam v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot Sheshet yamim asa Adonai l'shamayim v'yet ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorot ha'merid olam u'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat v'yinafash Shabbat v'yinafash v'shamru b'nei Yisrael Shabbat v'kadshehu savri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu b'chalom borei b'rei hagafen. All right, now I wait for it. Here it is. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Perfect. Thank you to our greeters as well, Jessica Sterling and Megan Shahed and Deva. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. But Javon, please be patient as the food I may be 3 minutes earlier than I told them. So.
French fries are still fun. May not be open yet. We'll follow everybody else.